Welcome to the Etsy Conversations podcast, featuring inspiring interviews with Etsy shop owners, hosted by Ijama Elazu.
Hi, and welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Ijama, and I thank you for joining me for another episode of the podcast. This week, my guest is Dorothy Collier. She does a lot, and I'm so excited to talk with her because I'm just so intrigued by everything she's doing. Dorothy has an Etsy shop. It's called Dorothy Art, and she sells vintage book art, but it's so much more than that. She also hosts a podcast called Positively Creative. We're going to talk about that as well. And she's just this wealth of knowledge and an information resource to the creative community. So I'm happy to have her on. Dorothy, thank you so much for being on the podcast and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. This is going to be fun.
Yes. So before we start, can you just tell us a little bit about who Dorothy is?
Well, I am an artist. I am a mom to a 2-year-old boy.
Oh.
I am a wife. I am a leader in our local creative community. And just in the past year, I have started the podcast, and then around the same time, I started being the leader of Rising Tide Society, which is an international chapter for creative entrepreneurs. So I'm the local Memphis leader. I'm one of 3, and so I'm just wearing all sorts of hats these days, and I'm having an identity crisis. So I don't really know who I am anymore. Can you help me?
It's so funny because I saw that, and I have 5 windows open on you, Dorothy. I kid you not. I have your Etsy shop. I have your website. I have a couple of the resources that you offer, your podcast, and the Rising Tide Society. And I thought, this lady is doing everything I want to do, but she's actually doing it. I'm just doing all this stuff in my head. I'm not actually doing everything that I would like to. How do you manage it all? How do you manage your time, especially being a mom to a little boy?
I don't think I am. I don't really know. People say, like, how do you balance life? How do you juggle all the things? And if you saw my laundry pile right now in my car, you would think that I am a disgusting human being. And, priorities they call them priorities for a reason, right?
Yeah.
So I prioritize the things in my life that have meaning to me. And right now I am in a season of growth and, really just honing in on what it means to be a creative entrepreneur. And it is a huge conversation that's happening locally here in Memphis, Tennessee right now. And I don't know, I'm a big believer in things happen for a reason. And if you want to take action on something, you have to believe it to receive it. And right now, I'm just trying to dream big dreams for my business and for the small creative businesses around me, because I really think that the handmade artisan, the maker is, we're having a resurgence. We're having a moment right now.
Yeah.
And we got to capitalize on that moment. So I'm having an identity crisis. I'm not balancing anything. I just get really excited about a lot of things, and I've got squirrel syndrome. But I'm doing the things that thrill me and that just ignite my soul. And so right now that's a lot of things. And and I know that I'm in a season of growth, and I need to run with it. So I'm excited to be talking to you about Etsy, because I can get some insight from you. I love my Etsy shop. I have other platforms where I sell as well. So but Etsy is the start of it. And So with all the new Etsy changes, I don't feel well versed at all, but we're all learning, and that's
Yep.
what it's all about, is, that constant change and keeping up in this day and age. And so yeah, I'm just trying to figure it out alongside. I think that's really why I started my podcast, is I just wanted to have these conversations and just, get down to the nitty gritty, because there's a million ways to do things.
Yes.
And there's no one set path. And, we all know that in our head, but hearing it, hearing other people's, like, taking bits and pieces from other people's stories is really what thrills me. So
yeah, I agree with you on so many levels, because I feel like I go through phases of, okay, who do I want to be now? And I'm constantly going through different iterations of myself and what I want to be doing. And I think for us creatives, because we have so many ideas and so many interests and things that we want to get into, we end up living like, like 5 open tab lives of different things that we're doing. But I don't think I could do it any differently, because I've tried to focus on one thing and I just can't, because my mind is like everywhere. I know I can't do all things, but it helps to investigate the different directions that we're drawn to. And some things don't work out, and then you drop them and you move on. So I completely get where you're coming from. And like you, I started this podcast because when I started on Etsy, I was like, well, I don't know what to do, but let me just hear what other people are doing. And that's how it came about. So having these conversations is really helpful, because then you figure out that, everybody is trying to figure out what to do. And then we end up just learning from each other. So
Yes.
Starting at Etsy, let's start from there. How did you first decide to start selling on Etsy? And was that the first place you tried to sell your artwork?
Yeah. So when did Etsy start? 2000?
I think 8.
8.
Or so.
Okay, yeah. I remember oh my gosh. So I was in college. I was at Ole Miss in Mississippi, and I remember finding this website on the computer in the library. And buying so in the beginning, I think I bought like something Wizard of Oz. I can't remember what it was, but it was something Wizard of Oz for Halloween costume. I thought it was really cool because I wanted to be Dorothy, of course. Like, how many times have I been Dorothy for Halloween? So I found something. I can't remember what it was, but I remember sending it to my mom, and she was like, "Where did you get that?" I was like, "It's on the internet. There's this place you can buy handmade things." And my mom is, I guess I'll start back, I'll rewind. My mom is a painter. My mom's an artist. She paints amazing impressionistic oil paintings. Streeter Spencer is her name. And so I grew up watching her paint, and I grew up going to her art shows on the weekends. And so that entrepreneurial side of things, like, that just kind of came naturally to me because I watched her set up for art shows. I watched her, she wasn't selling online, but because there wasn't that, but yeah, so I knew that that's what I wanted to do. I actually wanted to major in it, and my mom said no, because she didn't. And she said, "You have that talent. You do not really need to, be
taught.
Yeah, be taught those things." I didn't. Look, I did it on my own without the degree, make a money-making, earning degree. And so I said, whatever. And I double majored in psychology and art, thinking that I was going to be a psychiatrist, but and so I did anyway. And so yeah, I started selling on Etsy. After I graduated, I started painting. It was the recession, 2009. And so I didn't want to be a psychiatrist or a psychologist. I looked into art therapy, but at the time there were only 2 places to study. And not in the Southeast, and I was in love. So I decided to get my master's in art education. And so, because that would be a good salary check. And so, the starving teacher, not the starving artist.
Yes.
And so, anyway, I did that. But when I was taking my master's classes, I was painting in my kitchen. And I opened up an Etsy shop, and it was collegiate stuff. It was like sorority art that that like I still would have, like, girls my age would have hung in their dorms. It was cutesy cute stuff, and I put it on Etsy, and my friends and friends of friends sold it or bought it.
Yeah.
And I would like posted it on Facebook, I think. And I made a Facebook page. And so yeah, that's how it started. And then my style evolved, and I started the little teeny tiny pieces of paper that I was putting on the canvases became the whole entire canvas. Was covered in sheet music and book pages, and painting the oil on top of that. And so yeah, I found my way through Etsy, and Etsy was my sole, art income for a while. Then I was an art teacher, and I did local shows, but yeah, still Etsy was the sole thing. And I can't remember the year that 5 years ago, Facebook reminded me that 5 years ago I launched DorothyCollier.com.
Oh.
And so I've been, what was 5 years ago, 2013. So yeah, for 3 whole years, Etsy was it. And I just love Etsy. I owe a lot to it, and the community is so huge. We can all learn a lot from each other.
Yeah.
And I've bought things on there,
Yeah. Now, so you sell through Etsy, but then that's not the only platform. You also sell, you have an e-commerce website.
Yes.
And you sell live.
Yes, I have. I'm a big believer in diversified income.
Yeah.
If you are not diversifying as a creative entrepreneur, you're missing out, because, as the economy ebbs and flows and trends change, you just need to be in lots of different areas, I believe.
Yeah.
And so I've tried to utilize all of the avenues that I've been given. And yeah, so I have Etsy, I have my website, I host that via Shopify.
Yes.
And it does some things for me that Etsy has not. It's just, a different layout. It makes it look like I can have creative control.
Yeah.
And, now with Etsy Plus, I was just watching the video yesterday of what that's going to look like. And, we will be able to have more creative control of what our page looks like on Etsy. So that's really exciting. They've been listening. And yeah, so, and then I do local shows. Meeting your customer is priceless. Hearing them, what they have to say, just seeing the pieces that they gravitate towards when they are in your booth at like a craft fair, is very important. So, and, seeing the look on their faces when they tell you about your artwork, it's eye-opening, and it's the best.
Yeah.
So selling in person is a lot of work, but it's very rewarding.
Yes. And I want to get to that because I know you have a resource for others who want to sell in person. But let's talk about, first let's talk about selling online. So you mentioned Etsy Plus. Now, the announcement was made not too long ago. I think by this time, the shock has worn off most of us, and we're now at the stage of, okay, what do I do? What's best for me? What's best for my business?
Right.
After having assessed what they're offering on Etsy Plus, do you think that it's something that could be beneficial for you? I know everyone is different, but after you assessed it for yourself, do you think that it is beneficial and something that you will take advantage of?
Yeah, I think that I will. I think that, it's going to take some time to set up, and I've got
Yeah.
to batch edit my days to do it.
Yeah.
But, which seems overwhelming at first, but then like all things, it's going to pay off.
Yes.
And yeah, I think I will do it. It's going to make me have a more aesthetically pleasing Etsy website.
Mhm.
And that's what it's all about. You've got to put yourself in the buyer's shoes.
Mhm.
And when the buyer clicks on your thing, if they are any versed at all on Etsy, they probably are by now, because like you would just if you follow somebody on Instagram, you would just go to their website. Otherwise, if you're an Etsy shopper, you're an Etsy shopper.
Yeah.
And so, the Etsy buyers are gonna be eventually well versed in what is a good looking Etsy store and what is not.
Yeah.
And
That's
so
a good
I'm
point.
that's an initial thought of mine. I could be totally, spatting off ideas, but that's initially what I'm thinking, is that I'm predicting that the buyer is going to, want that beautiful experience. And they might not even know why they love it, but it's going to be better looking. And, just like how some shops are easy to navigate and some aren't. That all goes into play,
Yes.
photography, all that stuff that I need to be better on every aspect, but, that we're
Right.
all working towards. That's what's going to get your buyers. So,
Yes,
yeah,
and you're right. And Etsy has said that. I mean, well, for the most part, what we hear is, photography is key. You want to grab them with your photographs, but there is an element of shoppers staying on a site that they enjoy being on, a site that makes it easy for them to move around and flow through.
Yep.
And so that is one thing to keep in mind. There was another thing I was going to mention along those lines, which escapes me right now, but yeah, so that's a good thing. As far as running your Shopify site, how much time does it take, or how much time do you devote to driving traffic to that site? Do you tend to drive traffic more to it because that's your own platform, or do you tend to drive traffic more to your Etsy shop?
I drive traffic to my own platform because that is where I can collect emails.
Yes.
And that is where I can really engage them visually.
Mhm.
I haven't seen an Etsy Plus page yet, but when I do, I think that we'll be able to capture our audience visually there. But yeah, I can, that I can tell them my story. I can show them blog posts. I can keep them on the site longer.
Yeah.
So I haven't spent that much time. I have tried to find platforms to streamline those processes. Shopify is really easy to start.
Mhm.
But here we are talking about Etsy. Etsy is so easy to start. Like it's clicks and buttons. It is just so easy.
Yeah.
So I, am a big believer of definitely start out having an Etsy shop and get it under your belt, because, and then even when people say like, why when you close your Etsy is random traffic. The sales that I make on Etsy are the strangers. They are ones that, are finding me through the Etsy search.
Yeah.
They're finding anniversary cards. They're finding, baby art prints, nursery art prints. Those are people that are, just searching, whatever the case may be. And then on Shopify, I am having to generate that traffic on my own. The sales that I get from those that are local. They have come from my Instagram account. They have come from Pinterest. And I'm using Tailwind app to generate the Pinterest. But yeah, so, and I'm also, of course, pinning things from my Etsy shop as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think, and I don't know this for sure, but have you found this to be true? That, like you said, the people who buy from you on Etsy are the strangers who come on there looking for something and then find you or find your product, and that fits what they were looking for. Whereas when you work to send traffic to your own site, those are people that you've drawn in for a specific reason. Do you find that those people tend to turn into longer term customers, as in they end up coming back for more because they came for a reason and didn't just find you as, on the wayside? Does that make sense?
That makes total sense. That's a great question. And I'm not a numbers person. And so I haven't done the analytics. I probably should have more, but yeah, I do have returning customers on both platforms. It's really funny. Before I got on this call, I was seeing an age shift. Does that make sense? My buyers that are still purchasing from me on Etsy, my return buyers on Etsy, are people, middle-aged women, 45, 50 plus, that are still purchasing on Etsy because they found me on Etsy years ago. And that's how they keep on chatting with me in the conversations. Whereas if it's someone that's my age, in their 30s or 20s, they're chatting with me on Instagram, and Instagram is taking them to my site. Right. So that just dawned on me this morning that my customer age range has shifted, I think, on Etsy. But they're still buying away, so I'm still going to sell on it. I would not, I don't understand why some people would even want to ever shut that avenue off.
And I say the same thing too. I'm like, yes, it's changing, but change happens all the time. And unless the change is so horrible that your business cannot function, for the most part, this, the changes that are going on Etsy are intended to improve the site. And I think it's worth it to hang in there and see what changes, how the changes affect you, rather than, leaving just because the changes were made. Because sometimes change can be good.
Right. Yeah, it's funny when you think that like changes are scary, and then when Facebook showed me that screenshot of my website 5 years ago, I laughed and I cringed, and I was like, "Oh my God, that's hideous." But but change is good. If you don't want to change, then why are you working today?
Yeah.
So, I think that going back to that original question of, do you think that they're staying longer and becoming repeat customers? Yes and no. So yes, in the same, in that age range, different age ranges. But yeah, like all things, change is good.
Yeah. So now I want to talk about something that a lot of creative entrepreneurs desire, and that's getting exposure. Now, you've been featured, or your work, I should say, has been featured in different media outlets. How do other artists go about catching the eye of media outlets to get their work exposed? Do you think it's better for creative entrepreneurs to go out and actively market to specific, say, publications or websites that we want to appear in? or is it just a matter of positioning yourself so that you can be found?
I'd say both.
Okay.
So with that said, how we want to position ourselves. We want to have a gorgeous Instagram feed. We want to be pinning the things. We want to have our email address very, visible. We want to be accessible.
Yeah.
We want to be, responding to DMs on Instagram. We want to be engaged, right? But seeking out your own success is crucial. When you go on an Etsy shop, you don't know if that person is doing it full time and hustling their booty off 40 hours a week, or if they're in a season of growth, growing their family and only wanting to do a couple of orders a week.
Yeah.
So, those people that are reaching out to you, number one, they need to see previous success. Or they need to see a willingness to easy responses, So I was actually talking about this last night after dinner with our Rising Tide Society Tuesdays Together July meetup was last night, and the national chapter makes the topic on passive and diversified income. And so afterwards we started talking about how we can promote ourselves and get our product into the hands of bloggers. That is an avenue that I should have been utilizing years ago and never have. I think I may have been featured on 2 blogs before. And those are people that reached out to me back in the good old days, like on Etsy Combo or something like that. So now, social media marketing and influencer marketing has changed dramatically, and it's so new. We don't know how to do it, right?
Yes.
Like, what is this science? What is this voodoo happening? Tell me all about it. So just over dinner last night, I was talking to one of my blogger friends, and we were asking her, she's a wedding blogger, The Bridal Theory. She does amazing work. And I was asking her, how do you like being pitched to? What is a good percentage for affiliate marketing? I know that she is promoting service-based stuff a lot, but how do you want to be promoted as a blogger with a product-based business? And so we all decided over the dinner that we all need to be making media kits. And so that's on my short to-do list. And my plan going forward with that is I'm going to be sending products to bloggers. I'm going to be giving them an affiliate link and saying, here's a promo code for your readers and 20% off of my product, my prints. And, here is an affiliate link that you're going to make X amount of percentage every single time I sell one. And I'll cut you, I don't know, I guess I'll cut you a PayPal. I haven't worked that out yet. We didn't get that far, but in the conversation, we did, we stopped, we didn't figure out that answer. So if you have that answer, let me know. So that's a way that generating the product is going to be, that I think that's going to be a little bit of legwork in the beginning, making that media kit, but once it's there, it's there. And successful people that I have seen on their sites, I can't think of anybody right now off the top of my head, but having a media kit on your website available to download, that gives, if anybody is in PR, they love being handed stuff. They love being handed all of the lingo and phrases, and because you just did their job for them.
Yeah.
And they do not have time. So, they've got deadlines. So they would love that. All of those downloadable, maybe a Dropbox available to download all the images, things like that.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm headed. Previously, I've reached out if there has been publications or anything that I would want to be featured in. I reach out In the past, in seasons of growth, I remember when I started doing art full time and I left teaching, I had a plan. Every day I was going to reach out to 3 people. I was going to do 3 active things that would build me successfully. So I don't even know whatever those 3 things were, but I was going to, I was going to find 3 things each day that I might feel uncomfortable doing, that I might be nervous about doing. I'm just going to rip off the Band-Aid and do it, because waiting is going to generate fear and anxiety, and for me at least. And then we're just going to freeze and not going to do anything. And then you'll get that sense of mentality, well, for me at least, nothing's coming to me. No, you've got to be active. You got to tell the world that you're there and, that you want to be featured. Otherwise, how are they going to know?
Yeah,
so
I agree. And thank you for mentioning the media kit, because that is really important. It does take some work up front. I think I have like 5 different versions, just because every time you make one, you realize you left something out, or you need to add something, or things change too.
Right.
And for anyone who's listening that doesn't know what a media kit is, I don't know if this is the best explanation, but basically it's like a typically 1 page of information about who you are, what you do, and it's geared towards working with people who want to work with you. So advertisers or sponsors or what have you. And then you can put your rates on there. You can put what type of reach you have. And I think typically it's more for if you have a blog or a podcast and you want to partner with other companies that, in some type of symbiotic relationship. So, but usually there's money involved. And so does that make sense?
Yeah. So I have one. It's funny. I have one for the podcast. I used to have one for Dorothy Art, and it's outdated, and it's probably on an old computer. I have no idea. It's probably not even in a cloud. That's how old it is. So
everything's in the cloud.
I know, but I don't even think it probably is. It's long gone. So that's something I need to work on. That's something I need to do. And like you said, it takes some time up front, but once it's there, and it is so easy. It's going to make people's jobs easier, and it'll be easier for them to promote you. So, promotion is major, I think.
Now, is this the type of thing that one would get, or the type of information rather that one would get if they did a one-on-one creative consultation with you? I know that's something that you offer to creative entrepreneurs. Can we talk about what that looks like, who that's for, and who typically will benefit from having that creative consulting session with you?
Yeah, so that is where we hone in on anything you need. Okay. And as you can probably tell, I'm an open book. It is definitely for product-based businesses. It is for people that are wanting to go the Etsy shop route, that are wanting to sell their own product, and whether that is at local craft fairs, fine art shows, selling wholesale, where you are selling 50% at a through retailers, and anything like that. That is my forte, and that's what I love, sharing that information. So we go over the basics, and then we dive deep into where do you want to be? How can we get you there? Okay. What actionable steps are you going to implement so that you can see the success, you can visualize it, you can work through it, you will work through it, and then you will be there before you know it. It's going to get down to the nitty gritty. It's going to give you the, I don't even know, all of the technology stuff, just
Okay.
all of the nitty gritty, all of the apps that I use.
Okay.
It's going to give me all of the resources that I'm using, and all of the products, all of the supplies.
Yeah.
Anything you want to know, I'm an open book for that one-on-one consulting.
Okay. So an Etsy seller is listening right now and is not getting the sales numbers that he wants, and is feeling kind of stuck. Not so much on the creative part, because he can create the products.
Mm-hmm.
So then he comes to you and you create a roadmap of how to get to a point where he's making sales. And we're not just talking about only on Etsy. We're talking about multiple revenue streams for getting paid for what he's doing.
Yeah.
Okay. So at the end of a session, he'll have a roadmap that's easy to, well, I shouldn't say easy, a roadmap that should be followed in order to achieve a desired outcome.
Yes, we will
Okay.
have a whole platform of notes and all of the nitty gritty details of resources.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I will link to Dorothy's website. It's positivelycreative.net, and you can read more about that, what you get in a consulting session with Dorothy. It's nice to talk to somebody who's actually doing it and who's walked that path, so that, somebody else who's behind you and just can't see, a way through, can have someone who's gone ahead and say, okay, this is where you might get stuck. This is what you need to do. Then do this, then do that. I think that's really helpful. So I'll link to that so folks can check that out. The other thing that I like that you do, which I know a lot of us struggle with, is selling in person. And so you have a program that teaches people how to sell at shows. Can we talk about what that is and how what people can get from that? Because craft show season is coming up
Yes.
On us. So now is a great time to get ready.
Yes. So it is not my product. It is someone else's, but it is something that I was looking for, and it hit me on Pinterest at 2 a.m. and I was like, oh my gosh, this is everything I ever wanted to know. It was what the 2009 Dorothy version. I was just jaw dropped. And I was like, oh my gosh, if I would have had all of this, I would have not gone through all the struggles, all of, no, it's still a journey, and it's everybody else's, people's journeys are all different once again.
Yeah.
But, I've done over like 65, maybe 70 shows. And, it's just everything that you would have ever wanted to know. So on positivelycreative.net, go there, and from there you can find this 250-page PDF.
Whoa.
That I know.
That's
it goes
huge.
on and on. And it's like, I should know the exact number of it. I think it's $15. It is a no-brainer. Actually, I'm seeing now it is some of them. This one's 75 pages and 17 worksheets. Wow. And it's right now it's only $5. So, and then there's a couple of others that you can purchase for the whole entire thing. The whole entire package is $16.
Okay.
So,
that's very reasonable.
It's insane. Yes. $16 for so much information, all about craft fairs, from your display to how to stock, to how to price, how to, put things up, what pieces to buy, how to interact with customers. All of it is there. And so it is not mine, but it is a friend of mine's, and I wanted to promote her stuff.
Oh,
and
good.
yeah, it's everything that I wish I would have written. But she
Now,
already did.
how much time do you think one would need in order to go through all that and then be ready?
I am a big believer in start and figure it out later, because there is no perfect way to do anything, and you will only learn from experience. If you are sitting on your couch daydreaming about what it's going to look like to be at that craft fair, but never implementing it and never building your booth,
Yes.
you're not going to know that maybe your walls are way too short, or maybe they're too big for your car. It's all the little, nitty gritty stuff.
Yeah.
So you got to start, you got to try, you got to jump don't jump too hard. Don't sign up for a $400 booth when you're not sure that you can make $200.
Yeah.
Figure out the audience. I'm a big believer in walking a show first before you sign up for it. Know who's going to be there. Currently I feel like I'm kind of pricing myself out of some craft fairs. My paintings are higher price than they used to be. And so at craft fairs, I'm only selling a couple of small paintings and pillows, baby blankets, gift card or greeting cards, and prints. The prints are huge, but you've got to know who is the client, who's going to be there.
Yes.
So just all the stuff like that.
Okay.
And there's a podcast episode on Positively Creative about that, about craft fairs and art shows. And I think that's podcast is like in the 20s, something like that. Scroll back a little bit. But yeah, and then that downloadable PDF for $16, over 250 pages
that
of just
is a great price.
all of the things that you don't think about. But yeah, I'm a big believer in start.
Okay. I like that. All right. So I will link to that as well. You can actually get to it right from Dorothy's website, Positively Creative. If you click on the link, it will take you there. So all that will be in the show notes for this episode. Now let's talk about your podcast, because you just mentioned that it's called Positively Creative. And for anyone who's looking for more podcasts to listen to, because we love to listen while we work or, go through our day, go check out Positively Creative, subscribe to it. One of the things that intrigues me is that you have seasons. So how do we know? Well, once we subscribe, they just show up when you have a new episode. Why did you choose to go seasonally?
Well, I don't know if I'll do it anymore. So I did it because as makers, as artists, we, as Etsy shop owners, October, November, December is cray cray.
Oh, yeah.
And on top of that, I'm starting a passion project locally that it started in November and it just has not stopped. And so I was navigating that. And so I paused making the podcast, and I realized I should not have done that. Just like how I took a huge break for maternity leave. I took like 6 months off. I stopped wholesale. I guess I do things in seasons and I start and stop, which is good for my emotional well-being.
Yes.
And, I learn a lot from that. But yeah, I was thinking the other day, I was like, I shouldn't have stopped the podcast. I should have just, I should have just kept on recording because it's not live, Yeah. So I am now practicing what I preach and batching recordings. And so, it's evergreen. And so that'll be there even if I'm not.
Yes. Yeah, that's great. And I can appreciate that because I know the work that goes into doing a podcast.
Yes, I have my podcast editor is Caroline Hull of Caroline Creates, and she has her own podcast. She and Kelly is an Etsy guru. You should be talking to Kelly and not me. Kelly, they have a Creative Biz Rebellion podcast, and so they're a product-based business podcast. And so they Caroline edits, and so now it is she helped me get started with it. I was editing on my own for a hot second, and then I handed it to her. And yeah, it's just so easy now. But yeah, it is still a lot of work,
Yeah. Oh,
but it's a
good.
lot of
I
fun.
need to connect with Caroline because I'm doing it all. So that would be great.
Yes, and I'm a big believer in hire out a repeat task. If it does not fill your heart, try to pass it off. So so yeah, I'm gonna let Caroline do what she's good at.
Now, one of the things that I like that you're doing, and you mentioned this earlier on, is you're part of the Rising Tide, and it's a way to connect locally. And that just seems to have been a theme, an underlying theme in the past few episodes that I've talked about. And so if
Oh yeah,
folks
cool.
listening now are not sick and tired of hearing connect locally, they will be after this episode.
Yeah.
But what would you encourage someone listening now who is really focused on selling online, whether it be through their own e-commerce website, in addition to Etsy? What would be some of the advantages that you could share about just going out into the community and connecting with other business owners and just with other human beings live for business growth?
Yeah, I have my friends, my friend sector, my family friend sector,
Mm-hmm.
and I have my artist friend sector. And that those groups started when I started. We would be next to each other at shows and just try to figure things out, chatting while we're setting up our booths, things like that. But it's grown, and I've met so many people just this past year. So, like I said, we're one of the biggest chapters internationally, and once again, that's because the conversation is so needed in Memphis. But yeah, so we have almost 800 people in our private Facebook group for our local chapter, and Facebook told me we started Rising Tide in March of 2017, and by October 2017, Facebook told me that I had made over 100 friends on Facebook. So that's 100 people that are within a 10, 15-mile radius of me that are doing something like me that I did not know before. Memphis is a big city, but it is a small town as well. Like, you feel like you know everybody, but you don't.
Yeah.
And so I've met so many new people, and we have all just helped each other grow. It is so rewarding to find like-minded creatives that, we are all honed off in our own worlds, doing the solo thing, and to have like a water cooler type chat over a cocktail on a Tuesday night to be like, do you know what this client said to me? Or, can you believe this email that I got? Just little things like that. It just is good for the soul.
Yeah.
So on that side of it, yes. On the other side of it, it's going to help your business. It's going to, you're going to find outlets to sell your products that you didn't know were possible. You're going to be a face in the community so that people, when they think of art, when they think of paintings, for me, they're going to say, oh, Dorothy does paintings. Oh, I need a wedding gift. Oh, I saw Dorothy the other day. She paints churches for wedding gifts. Things like that.
Yeah.
Oh, she has baby blankets,
Yes.
It's just the constant reminder of letting people know you're there. And so, yeah, I think it is so good. Rising Tide society has been just such a game changer for my world in the past year. It is something that I believe has come from a gift from above. I needed it when I didn't know that I needed it. This community that we've built is just hands down incredible. There's a lot of chapters that, we thought they were going to be like the norm chapters where, it's 15, 20 people meeting up at a coffee shop. And that's incredible. And if there's that, you need that too. I think I'm just such a big believer in you might find your new best friend and didn't even know that you needed him or her.
Yeah, and that's I've heard, not heard, but literally that's essentially what others have said is just one, it opens up doors that you just might not even have known were there for the opening, and two, the connections that you make are just a different type of connection than if you're just talking to someone online.
Right.
And so I think that's great. How can folks, or how would you recommend that people go about finding a group to connect with, like Rising Tide? You helped to set this one up, correct?
So I did, and I got out of pregnancy fog. Like I said, I took way too long of a leave, but it was emotionally good for me. And after maternity leave, I searched for my local chapter. I had been following Rising Tide Society on Instagram, and there's a private Facebook group with like maybe 80,000 people in it, from all over the world, doing things that you're doing every single day. So I was in those groups, and the conversation was really good, but I was jealous of the people that were having local meetups. And I was like, I'm ready to get back into the world. And so I just assumed that Memphis is a very big city, and I assumed that there was a chapter here. So I was like, all right, I probably know the person that is heading it up. Let's go to the next one. When's the next Tuesdays together? And there wasn't one. And so I was in a season of growth. I was in a season of reaching out to 3 things a day. And so I applied on the spot when I found that out, I applied to be a leader. And I was like, what did I just do? That's going to change my world. Okay, who cares? It's happening. And then, no kidding, I had been kind of connected to this girl. We were Instagram friends. Someone had connected us. We had done the same conference, a Stationery Academy conference. And the person of Stationery Academy said, oh, Sarah, Dorothy, y'all are both in Memphis. You should meet up. And less than 24 hours after I applied, Sarah Instagram messaged me and said, again, I have never met this person in person. And she said, I see that you like Rising Tide Society on Facebook. I'm thinking about starting a chapter here. And I said, oh my goodness, the universe is screaming at me right now. This is insane. I signed up yesterday. And so I said, I'm going to call Kate, the girl who heads it up. I said, I'm going to email her, and I'm going to tell her that we want to be co-leaders, because that was a thing. I'd seen that you could be a co-leader. And I was like, oh, we're going to do this. It's insane. So, so that's how it got started in Memphis. And if you do not have a chapter, start one. It has been the best thing that has happened to me in this last year. And if you have one in your area, go be present, because you're going to meet people. It's like, the feeling when you were in high school and you couldn't wait until art class because those were your people.
Right. Yeah.
And you could just make jokes while you're painting.
Yes.
That's what it is. That's what it is. It's that feeling. It's that heartstring.
Okay.
So, go. I cannot recommend it enough. Go.
Now, did you have to create the website for your chapter, or did they take care of that?
We did that on our own. I think that's probably one of the reasons why we might be bigger than most. We kind of acted like this was our new job in business. We meant business. And Sarah made a Squarespace account because that was her platform that she used, and it's pretty cheap. So we did that. But they set up the private Facebook group for your city, and they give you a Google Drive of everything that you need, images, copy, all of that jazz. And so
Okay.
it's and then we've gotten so big that we built a board, and you don't have to be big enough to make a board. We just decided to. And so we wanted all hands on deck type of thing.
What kind
And we
of
have
board?
So we have a small group of leaders that consist of like subdivisions of creatives. So fine artists, graphic designers,
Oh,
makers,
okay.
wedding industry, things like that, photographers. And then culinary is another one. And then so we decided to do that, and they could have small group meetups. And then we decided to have a photographer that was on the board that could take the pictures. Each month. We decided to have outreach chairs so that they could, find the guest speakers. You do not have to have guest speakers, but we've gotten so big that we decided we did not want to be the professionals of the topic at hand. So we found, great people in our community that will come each month and talk for free, give us their time and information. So it's just been so amazing. Even if you're in a teeny tiny city and you're like, I'm the only Etsy shop person in my whole city and no one else would come, you can get on risingtidesociety.com, subscribe, and you'll get the free downloadable PDFs for each monthly topic. Those PDFs are amazing. They consist of tons of articles all on the topic. They're like 15 to 20 pages each month for free. Okay. So definitely do that. That's a no-brainer. And then find the one that is regionally closest to you. If you don't feel inclined to start your chapter now, find one that is regionally close to you and get in the Facebook group and be honest and say, look, I'm on the outskirts of your city. I would love to come. I would love to come when I can, if time ever allows, my schedule ever allows me to. But I definitely would love to be in your Facebook group so that I can be a part of the conversation. Okay. And they'll accept you. And then, we have some girls that drive from Jackson, Tennessee, which is an hour and a half away. And then we have some people that drive from North Mississippi. And, they come maybe twice a year, but they are very present in the Facebook group. So it's just it's a community.
And the meeting is every Tuesday, is it? Or once a month?
No. It is every second Tuesday of the month.
Every second Tuesday of the month. Okay. I love that you shared that because I feel like you're talking to me. So I recently moved from San Francisco, the Bay Area, to Denver. Okay. And San Francisco has one of the most active street teams, as in, there were constantly community events and cool. Craft fairs that they would organize, and it was so active. It was almost like it wasn't just an Etsy team. It seemed like it was so much more than just an Etsy team. And I haven't found that in Denver. And I keep toying with the idea of, should I just start something here? Should I just,
oh my gosh, yes.
But then, I'm doing like 6 other things. And it's
I know.
Should I?
It's called a multi-potentialite. My friend Abby told me it's called multi-potentialite. It's a thing. Look it up. But, so with that, I would say, join it online, vibe it out, see if your heart is in it. Yeah. And you know what? I think why Memphis chapter is thriving is because there's a lack of this conversation in our community. In huge other cities, there are tons of networks that are just like this. So find that network. Being around like-minded creatives is so eye-opening. We are all of the same thread, but we've all walked different paths. And, you're going to meet some people that are totally opposite of you. And I have some of my best new friends this past year, their background profiles and their just walks of life, their theories, their religions, their everything, they're totally different than mine, but I love them.
Yeah.
And we find common ground. And, it is so, it's just incredible.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will link to risingtidesociety.com in the show notes for this episode, so that anyone else who is considering, who after the last few episodes and you've had it drummed into your ears that connecting locally is really important and can be beneficial for you, and I don't want you to misunderstand why I'm harping on it. It's not just so you can grow your business. That's a nice side effect of it. But there's something about connecting with people face to face where you can look into someone's eyes and have a conversation and learn about not just what they're doing, but who they are. That's a different type of connection. And when you connect with people on that level, good things can happen.
Oh, yes. It is so incredible. There's probably psychology studies that have been done over it, but we are in this new era where, like, Etsy started 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And we went behind our computers for a long time.
Yes.
And we're spatting at our computers every single day. We're doing it right now on this podcast.
Yeah.
We're doing it on Instagram stories. But being in person, like, it's hysterical that we're having to teach ourselves how to be human again.
Yes. I know. It's
Come
funny.
on,
It's like,
guys.
oh my goodness, there's somebody. Oh, they're looking at me. Oh, they're walking this way. What do I say? What do I do? But yes, it's funny.
Yeah.
That
As you can probably tell, I am an extrovert. I've probably done some
no
studies,
kidding.
but if you are an introvert and, like, going to a meetup seems to, like, terrify you and you think you might die, like public speaking or something, breathe. Breathe. And just maybe go with a friend. We have some people that definitely come in packs.
Yeah.
We have some people that bring their husbands, their boyfriends, and we have couples that have businesses that work together. And then we have some that, bring their spouses just for the betterment of, it's kind of like a date night. They go to our meetup and then they have dinner.
Yes. And that would be me, because I am an introvert, which, I say it on the podcast, but people, it's hard to believe, but I really am. This is probably the most talking I would do with someone I didn't know is when I'm doing the podcast. And so in person, and that's why I'm trying to get myself to do something like this, because I like to challenge myself. If I don't, I don't say a word. I joke that I have 2,000 word allotment per day, and once my words are used up, they're used up. No more is coming. So even just doing this podcast is me coming out of my shell, and so activities like this type of networking event, it gives me cold sweats to think that I would have to go and, interact with people, but I know it's a good thing to do. And, I hope other people enjoy challenging themselves to grow in that way.
I used to be nervous about stuff like that. Like, it used to be like, oh, what do they think? You know what? I had a realization, and I don't know if I read this somewhere, if I probably heard it from somewhere. Everyone is thinking about themselves. We are all egomaniacs. Okay. So if you're nervous at an event, anywhere, in any walk of life, we're all only out for ourselves. That's how we survive, right? So, you know what? If you're thinking, I mean, it goes down to like an everyday thing. If you're thinking about, like, oh my gosh, what are people thinking about the way that I'm dressed? everyone's asking themselves, how am I dressed? Everyone's thinking about themselves.
Actually, that's a good way to think about it.
Yeah. We're all egomaniacs. Take a chill pill. Life goes on.
Now, Dorothy, are there any other resources? You've given us 3 good ones already. The Bridal Theory. I want everyone to go check out her blog. Yeah, and Caroline Creates, as well as the Rising Tide Society. Are there any other resources that you find particularly helpful, just as a creative business owner, that you can share with us?
Oh my gosh. Well, everyone that's been on my podcast, I am a fangirl of. So that's about 45 women that I look up to. So that right there, they're doing huge things. And
again, that's the Positively Creative podcast. I will link to that so you can subscribe and just start binge listening.
Yeah. Those are people that I look up to. And then I'm working on a resource guide. I'm working on a friends of the show, or like, I don't know the lingo yet, but, I know that I'm a lifelong learner. I wish I could go to college for forever.
Me too.
Maybe that's why I started all of this. But anyway, yeah, I am working on a resource guide. Hopefully I'll make a goal to have it be out pretty soon. So yeah, just follow along, subscribe to the newsletter on positivelycreative.net, and we'll go from there.
Okay. And if you're listening to this and you want to check out Dorothy's resource guide, I will have links to her website everywhere you can find her online at convome.com in the show notes for this episode, so you can easily check that out. And once the resource guide is available, I will also link to it in this episode as well. So in the show notes for this episode as well. So it will make it easy for you to get your hands on that. I can't wait for that to come out, because now I'm curious. I want to see what all the resources you put together are.
Me too. I want to see it too. I want to see it too. I'm going to make it happen. But yeah, so this has been so wonderful. Thank you so much for having me on your show. Like I said, I just think it's so good to have these conversations, because as a whole, we'll all grow together.
Yes,
we will. Healthy.
Thank you so much for being on the podcast. What's the best way folks can get in touch with you if they want to reach out and connect?
So my overarching umbrella site is dorothycollier.com, DorothyCollier.com. And there you can see all the crazy things I'm doing. That'll link to Dorothy Art, and that will link to Positively Creative Podcast, and that will link to Rising Tide Society Memphis, and that'll link to my new local endeavor. And then, but daily I am on Instagram at Dorothy Art and at Positively Creative Podcast.
Okay. When do you sleep, Dorothy?
I sleep. I'm actually a really big sleeper. I love to sleep. Yes.
That's funny. Thank you again so much for being my guest. I have enjoyed having you on. I think we should have this conversation again sometime in the future. What do you say?
Yeah, definitely. Let's round it up later.
Okay. And I thank you for listening to the podcast. I will be back next time.
Thank you for listening. You can subscribe to the podcast in iTunes, and while you're there, please leave a review too. Visit convome.com to leave a comment or feedback on this episode.